Hey everyone, and welcome to the Climate Career Kit podcast. This is your host, Aishni Garg. If you are a high schooler looking for direction in climate change related careers, tune into every episode for advice from the diverse leaders in climate jobs today and learn about new and exciting opportunities that you can pursue. Today's guest is Will Wiseman, the CEO and co-founder of Climatize. We are so excited to have you for the 15th episode of the Climate Career Kit. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be on the pod and excited to share more.
So the first question is, what is your company and what do they do?
Sure. So Climatize is a mobile app that enables you to make easy and transparent investments in renewable energy infrastructure projects for as little as $5. So there's everything ranging from solar to energy efficiency and even some EV charging infrastructure in the future.
Wow. So what does a day to day look like for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, as a CEO, especially in an early stage company, day to day changes every single day. So, it ranges from, hiring, scouting, and creating new job descriptions and ultimately finding new people for our team. It comes to fundraising and making sure that the company is appropriately capitalized so that we can, afford to have those hires, continue to build
Mhm.
on the project or on the product, continuing to ramp our marketing, and then really looking into the future so that we can think about new product launches and really what our growth strategy is. Additionally, I manage much of the legal for the team. So then working with our legal counsel, Morrison Forster, to really build that kind of operational foundation from the legal standpoint. I led our regulatory approval process, so jumping through the hurdles with the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. I built the first four prototypes of the product, so iterating that with customers, doing customer discovery, really understanding the pain points that those customers have, as well as I engage with the product team, oftentimes doing reviews of the sprints that they've done, how the software engineering is going, and how that's translating into the product itself. And then do a little bit of business development here and there when I'm not fundraising. Additionally, setting the company culture, so making sure everybody's aligned and feels like the values that we operate upon are something that is not just something that's written on the wall, but actually, embodied by each individual in the team. So, I mean, I could go on. I think that you could see that it's a really wide array, and I think that's one of the joys of being an early stage CEO is you're really learning as quickly as possible, and there's just so much to really take on that it enables you to grow very, very quickly and challenges you every single day. So, no 2 days are exactly the same.
Yeah, of course. So what inspired you to create this company?
Sure. Yeah. So the big aha moment and the inspiration for Climatize came when my co-founder, she and I had been studying a double master's degree in renewable energy engineering. And we joined the global climate strikes in Barcelona. And while we were there, this is pre-COVID, there was 100,000 people in the streets. And we were just blown away by this hope and this motivation. And there was this moment I really vividly remember where I stood up on a bench and I looked out over this sea of people. And I was blown away by just that hope that we could make a better future. And yet, in that moment, I was struck by this sad realization that we were all going to go home. And the next day, nothing was going to be different. And if you get 100,000 people together and their best option is to make a cardboard sign, there is a glaring problem.
Mhm.
And so that was this moment where, my co-founder, she and I took this step back and we thought, wow, there needs to be a way that we transform this, public momentum into actual tangible carbon reduction and climate action. And so through that kind of epiphany is where we began really exploring and interviewing people to understand what were the barriers that were preventing them from really participating in the energy transition. And as we went about that kind of discovery phase, we interviewed 250 people. And we
Mhm.
kept asking them, what is it that everyone from that crowd could contribute? And really looked at it from a systems perspective. And one idea that kept surfacing was that, what if everybody pitched in a little bit of spare change? Like everybody may have a little bit of money. What if they contributed that? And so once we ran the numbers and we saw kind of upon that foundational concept, like if everyone from that 100,000 person protest pitched in 50 cents, you'd have $50,000 that day. And if you did that for a year, that group would create $24 million. And you could build a lot of solar projects with that. And then, for example, okay, well, if the for those strikes, there were 7.6 million people who showed up. What would that be? And we ran the numbers and we saw that if that group pitched in 50 cents every day for a year, it'd be $1.75 billion per year in just that small individual contribution. And we saw that, wow, this could be something in which, that's not a lot to the individual, but yet collectively is actually a very meaningful sum of money. And so that was kind of this foundational aha moment for us. And we wanted to then explore, how do we enable everyday people to be active stakeholders in the energy transition, not just neutral bystanders and pushed to the side, but actually participating in a way where they can really benefit from it. And so that was kind of the core concept of Climatize. And so here we are now with our regulatory approval and starting to take investments in some of the climate projects that we're hosting.
Yeah, of course. That's an incredible inspiration. How does your company specifically connect to sustainability?
Yeah. So what Climatize does, we are our classification within the regulatory framework is a funding portal, and what that means is renewable energy projects, in particular solar, is really where we've started. They can come and seek funding on our platform. And through that, then everyday people, anyone from retail investors all the way through institutional, can come and actually invest in these projects. And so those projects are coming seeking debt financing to be able to go either construct new projects or design new projects. And so from that, you can come in and invest, essentially purchase some of these debt investment notes on our platform. And that money is then going directly to these projects. And that is where we are connecting capital and renewable energy projects. And you, as an everyday person, can come and actually see the underlying project that you are investing in. And that's just a very big kind of difference in terms of other financial products like an ETF, for example, where you're buying public equities, for example, or a mutual fund, which is just a diversification of investing in companies. With this, you're actually seeing the solar project or whatnot that is the asset that you're investing in. And so you have a really high transparency line of sight to what your money is contributing and how that money is going to advance, fighting climate change and ultimately the energy transition.
Yeah, of course. So, what did your journey from college to the creation of your company look like? What things did you do in school that helped you get to where you are?
Sure. Yeah. So I've been kind of a climate lifer. Aside from working in the particle physics lab at UCSC in high school, I started putting solar panels on roofs back in high school. And that was how I got my foot in the door into the clean energy industry. And I did it. People at the time, I mean, I was headed towards trying to study engineering in college, and people thought I was a little bit crazy. Oftentimes, if you're headed in that direction, you may go and try and get an early engineering internship or something. And I was going and actually doing the nuts and bolts of the industry because I had that respect for the perspective that it would give me down the road. And now I have that kind of perspective of what it's like to actually be the person on the roof, putting panels in, nuts and bolts, wiring inverters and wiring up panels. And that gives me I would say, a much more informed perspective when even looking at it from the engineering perspective and then also the financing perspective. So that was how I started in the industry. And then I got a mechanical engineering degree as well as an entrepreneurship minor from San Diego State. And I've worked in electrical project management and AI for renewable energy power forecasting as well. And with each one of those, I would say in particular the project management, realized that it was going to be 3 to 4 years for each project that I was working on. And if I said, wow, well, in a 45-year career, is that really the impact that I want to have? And the answer was no. And so that was when I decided to go back and get my graduate degrees. And during that master's program, where I did a master's in energy engineering, a master's in sustainable energy technologies, kind of renewable energy engineering as an umbrella. that was where I actually began to see that really the finance side could potentially enable me to really work with all of the different technologies while having a kind of more high level approach and being able to speak the same language as the project developers, but ultimately still like bringing that engineering view to the other side of the table. And so then it was during that master's program and during my education that I started doing the kind of foundational work with my co-founder. And she and I ultimately started Climatize and took it on full time after graduation.
Yeah, wow, that's a really long journey. So, what advice do you have for someone, specifically a high schooler, who wants to pursue a
Mhm.
job in an environmental field?
Yeah, definitely. So I think one of the areas where people can be discouraged from joining climate tech or the sustainability space is they often view it as something where you have to come from that STEM background, that you need to be an engineer or a scientist. And really, there is openings across the board for people who want to be involved in climate. And so, looking at it from the perspective of, first of all, what is it that you really enjoy? Where do you feel like you have the strength and the passion and something that you can really specialize in and bring something unique to the table? I think, as you go to find your place in the climate tech industry, really finding the thing that gets you out of bed and really fuels your passion every day is really, really important for finding something that brings genuine curiosity out of you. It's not simply a job, but actually taps into that deeper sense of like where you're going to pursue mastery and ultimately feel like you're going to bring your best self. And then once you've really found that, then aligned with your skill sets, climate now is an all hands on deck approach to really, re-architecting the entire global economy. And so we often, think of the demand being for electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, software engineers. And in reality, once those things are created, you need people to go and sell it. You need designers to come and give it, beautiful user interfaces. You need the legal and accounting teams behind helping run these companies. You need people on the front lines selling it. And so, as you go and find what your skill set is, recognizing that there is an enormous range of areas that you can plug yourself in, I think helps expand the sense of how inclusive the industry is and really how much we need people coming in at all of these different levels. Additionally, as you're young, going and joining, say, trade shows, going and potentially looking for internships, doing what you're doing, reaching out to founders like us to be able to learn and kind of find the area, whether that be to your point like storytelling and helping surface new companies, new innovations like this. This is a creative way to find your place in the industry. And so I applaud you for what you're doing and coming, spotlighting engineers or entrepreneurs, and then additionally kind of providing that guidance to the next generation. If there are sustainability clubs, things like the Sunrise Movement, those are also ways to kind of find your path into climate and sustainability.
Of course. Yeah, those are all really great pieces of advice. So, kind
Mhm.
of going off of that question, are there any resources or opportunities that you can direct high schoolers to who are interested in sustainable careers?
Yeah. I think so. I would point to the Sunrise Movement again in the sense that it's a very youth driven, activism centric coalition that is building and amplifying the voice of young adults coming into the scene and wanting to find their place in the climate tech industry. And I have joined the Sunrise Movement and joined into their meetings and very much empathize with many of the feelings of climate anxiety and fear and frustration in the system that doesn't seem to be moving at the pace that we want, and ultimately having the outcomes that we as the younger generation feel like is so glaringly obvious and necessary. So I would point to that as for like an area where somebody can find kind of solidarity and community. Additionally, there's like Climate Base, for example. They are a job board, one of the leading job boards for finding climate jobs. And I know that I think they're hosting something like over 2,000 climate companies at this point, and seeing an enormous amount of success in mobilizing people into the industry. So I would point to that as a resource for finding jobs. They offer fellowships as well to help people kind of build fluency in the space. Um, Listening to some of the podcasts, I mean, your podcast, as well as some of the others like the Energy Gang, Columbia Energy Exchange, the Carbon Copy, the Interchange. There's a lot of podcasts out there. And even before I went and did my graduate degrees, I was listening to many of these podcasts and found that by the time I actually got to the graduate degrees, I was pretty fluent in the space. And so they can help make your learning curve, exponential versus linear. So nowadays, there are these free resources out there that can really help build that foundational understanding. Um, and then after that, I would say there are some paid resources. You could do something like a Terra.do course. I know a lot of people have found value in engaging with those. Those are kind of like Climate 101, and to help people make that transition from either a previous role into a new climate role, or, help kind of high school students make that transition as well. And then I would suggest, there's Climatize, our product, where you can come and get a sense of, what renewable energy projects are being built and developed across the country. What is the actual finance side behind all of the clean energy infrastructure? And, we try and surface as much information as possible about these projects so you can kind of do your own diligence and really research that from a, kind of a more open perspective. And it would allow, these new high schoolers potentially, if they're over 18, to come and kind of like take a look at what it actually means for the rubber to hit the road when it comes to financing renewable energy projects. So yeah, I hope those help.
Yeah, of course. Those are tons of great resources or opportunities that I am linking on my website next to this episode. So if you're listening and you want to check those out, they're right there. So thank you so much for your time and your insights. I really appreciate it. And to all the listeners, make sure to tune in to the next episode of the Climate Career Kit.